See, the vaccine is not a sure shot. All we have is, as you said, promises and candidates. So most of the candidates or promises are based on in vitro or early experiments or some animal experiments. When it reaches to people, it becomes very different story, because that is when the trials begin, and 85% of the vaccine fail in stage 3 trials. Sometimes it will be even more dangerous. This time we are lucky that it is so less symptomatic and most people are getting off relatively easy, but it could be worse than this. Vaccine is essentially helping the immune system experience and fight the disease as and when it comes. So that means it's not a drug that it will go and work on its own. It takes help of the body, and that's how it works. Having said that, this doesn't mean that we will never have a vaccine. It has never happened in the history that so much of money and effort has been put against one virus, and I think country like India should be more strongly positioned in terms of expertise, facilities, and science base. Otherwise, we will not be able to manage or even do the basics against such pandemics or disease situation. Expecting a vaccine in half a year or 1 year is a bit of over ambitious. If we are extremely lucky, maybe end of the year, some good promises will come. Right now, there are promises. They will become a good promise. We should be ready to fight this pandemic without vaccine. If only we had the information and the relationship of which genome owner will respond and which will not respond. So you can now save 50% of the money in the chemotherapy. I personally don't think a major setback for the science because of the temporary shortage of funding. In an educated society, it is simply ridiculous to go through this kind of process. Somebody has got COVID, I consider that guy is a hero. We should tell people that there is no drug, there is no vaccine. The chance of having vaccine for some time is very, very slim. I don't know if there is otherwise a single formula that we should all go do this or do.
I welcome you to Into Their Minds. At Into Their Minds, we're trying to build this platform where we have this sort of active discussions and interview a few personalities who are contributing to the society in their respective fields. And in this new season, we focus more on getting to our audience a few personalities who are contributing directly to the current pandemic situation. So it's my pleasure having you with me today. And with that being said, I would like to start with rather an important question today about the status of the pandemic. With a lot of misinformation that's already around, it's quite hard for someone to make up their mind about the status of the pandemic. So what, according to you, is the status of the pandemic, Professor Mishra? So where do you think we are? Are we at the end of this pandemic situation? I mean, nobody can give a specific answer about this, but what, according to you, is,
So we are no way anywhere near the end of the pandemic. One thing is certain. There are many uncertainties, but this is certain. And when we are going to cross the high and what we call it, the peak, and then plateau and then come down, is also at the moment uncertain. There are theoretical models for that based on the data, but as we all know, for a variety of reasons, mainly for technical and resource reasons, the data is not that strong that we can make a model which is very reliable for most of the city. For certain cities, there may be little better data situation, and this data means number of people being tested and so on. So based on all these, people are thinking September end, but remember the peak and plateau comes only when you do something. If you don't do something, that they will not come, they will keep going up. And the overall trend average, if you see, it shows that things are going up. So the pandemic is very much on, it is becoming worse. But the good thing is that the virus is asymptomatic in most cases. So there is a big help from that. So many people don't need hospital assistance immediately. But if you go beyond a point, if beyond a point certain numbers increase, then there will be crowd at the hospital, and that's something which is, I think, the effort of everybody to prevent.
Yeah. So I would also like to talk about another big question about the recent developments of ICMR CCMB. So a group of 239 international scientists from across 32 countries had claimed that the virus is airborne, requesting the World Health Organization to, revise its rules when it comes to social distancing. So currently, CSIR has started a study to explore the possibility of airborne transmission of coronavirus. Can you talk more about this study and the investigation done?
So we have the studies yet to begin. We have decided that at two places we are going to do it, in Hyderabad and in Chandigarh. And so we have planned things. We are waiting for certain specific components, which we call as filters of a specific kind for the air sampling. And any day it should begin in a week or something. The idea here is that you collect the air samples at different distance in different contexts, whether it's in a ward where the COVID patients are there, or in a crowded place, or in a, let's say, bank, or various kinds of things. So first we are going to do sampling in different hospital settings, OPDs, or different places, just to see that how safe healthcare workers are and where they can get out of their PPE or mask and those kinds of things. So it should not be very difficult. Once we begin, then we can arrive at conclusion within a week or 10 days, because those are fast experiments to do. Just number of sampling is what is the key thing. But the reason we got into this is that there was very good study that showed that the virus can go in small particles, small droplets, which can hang in air if undisturbed for half an hour or more. So, which means that if you are in a closed room, closed environment, no airflow, then if person comes to you and speaks and sneezes or something without mask and goes back, then for half an hour or 1 hour, there may be virus particle floating around, because the big droplet will settle down, but these will take longer time to settle down. So one has to, distance is one thing, of course, but the more important is the closed environment. So if you are in a closed room or closed hall, then it is best to have the airflow, so that the air is exchanged and those droplets, if somebody emits, they are gone out. Because unlike earlier assumption, they are not just immediately going to fall down and not hang in the air for some time. So this also doesn't mean that it is real truly an airborne, which means air is polluted and wherever you go will get infected. And it's not like that. You require thousand or more particles to come in, and it takes a decent amount of exposure. So if a distance of a meter or two, I mean, a couple of meters is maintained, and mask is properly there in all the people, then we are pretty safe. It's not so difficult.
I see. Okay. Yeah, and so Dr. Mishra, as we were just talking, there's something almost everybody in this world is looking forward right now. Then it's the vaccine to the current situation, pandemic situation. It has become the question of our times. There's a lot of promises being made about many vaccines being in the final stages of human trials and the possibility of them hitting the markets in a couple of days. At the same time, there's a bunch of vaccines that are just still getting into animal trials and perhaps a couple of years ahead of being available. And even if we have a vaccine by the end of this year, what are we looking at with respect to the efficacy of that vaccine? And what should we be prepared for, Dr. Mishra?
See, the vaccine is not a sure shot. All we have is, as you said, promises and candidates. This
Hmm.
doesn't much. That's why there is a trial and all those things. So most of the candidates or promises are based on in vitro or early experiments, or some animal experiments. When it reaches to people, it becomes very different story, because that is when trials begin, and 85% of the vaccine fail in stage 3 trials, because stage 1 and 2 is a safety trial generally, but the efficacy and robustness of vaccine depends on how many people can get protection, what percent of people get protection, different ethnic groups, different age group, different health conditions, because vaccine is essentially helping the immune system experience and fight the disease as and when it comes. So that means it's not a drug that it will go and work on its own. It takes help of the body, and that's how it works. So it is not that predictable. There are large number of diseases for which we have no vaccine. I mean, HIV is one of them, which has been one of the best studied viral infection with all the modern tools, but we don't have any vaccine till today. Similarly, there are diseases like malaria and all the major killer. There is no proper vaccine. In fact, there is no good vaccine against any coronavirus till now.
Mm,
So, having said that, this doesn't mean that we will never have a vaccine.
mm,
It has never happened in the history that so much of money and effort has been put against one virus and vaccine. I mean, how many billions of dollars are pumped into this with the latest technology? So there is a hope, but how good the vaccine will be, only test will tell. That is, it's really true that time will tell. Nothing can be. There is no way of predicting a vaccine how good and how robust is going to be. Earliest we have had the vaccine earlier was 4 years in the fastest time. So expecting a vaccine in half a year or 1 year is a bit of a over ambitious target. But as I said, theoretically, one shouldn't rule out. One
mm,
can keep hope, but one should not depend on this. So my only comment here will be that we cannot depend and plan based on vaccine. If it comes, wonderful, we will have a great tool in hand. But we should be prepared that if there is no vaccine, which is not a negligible chance, it is tough to get vaccine. Unlike drug which you would give to sick person and sick person recovers, you can say drug is working in very simple terms. You vaccinate a person, then wait for what? The person not to get infected. So whether person did not get infected because virus didn't come or something else happened or vaccine worked. So it's very difficult to tell the efficacy of the vaccine in a population unless you infect those people deliberately. It's called
exactly.
active testing. But you cannot do that unless you have a drug against the disease. So if you don't have anything, you cannot just go and inject virus in everybody, and so that is unethical. So that is why testing of this vaccine against a new and dangerous infection is not easy part. That's why it takes time. And so, if we are extremely lucky, maybe end of the year, some good promises will come. Right now, there are promises. They will become a good promise. So you can start using, but that doesn't mean it will provide protection. But is a hope. It will
Mm,
take quite some time when we start getting data. Vaccines are monitored for a long period of time. Then we'll figure out that okay, it is more effective in children, less effective in adult, or more effective in old. All those things will come. So it's very very uncertain, and we should while keep working for trying to get a vaccine, do lots of candidates trials, new methods and all. But our preparation should be that we have to deal with this pandemic without any vaccine. With vaccine comes also will take couple of years to supply to people,
yeah.
depending on what kind of vaccine, what kind of cold chain it requires. So it can be, and those who are investing billions of dollars, they would want it to be given to their people first and not to the those who have just waited and not done anything. So
Mm,
all those things come, and then if it is new product, and particularly if it is RNA based vaccine, it's going to be very expensive, and it will be because it will require cold chain and those things. So having a vaccine, then efficacy of the vaccine, how robust and how good it is, and then the availability of the vaccine, all these three keep reducing the hope for common people.
yeah.
So it is very very difficult thing, and we should be ready to fight this pandemic without vaccine.
All right. So, as you were just mentioning, when we look back, the production of vaccines almost took many years, if not decades. So, what are the reasons for this vaccine to be able to be available this early, if at all, considering the promises being made? If it's available in less than like a couple of years, then what are the lessons, major lessons that we have learned from previous exposure or previous vaccine developments?
No, it's not previous vaccines. Each vaccine is a new story. What people are trying is to, because of the pandemic nature, you relax some of the rules.
Mm,
So you relax them, like you can do stage 1 and 2 trial together, or you can maybe stage 3. Normally, you expect a certain period of time. You can reduce that if nothing happens. See, the what will happen is that there is a vaccine which is not doing any harm to you, and
mm,
if somebody is willing to invest money, Now, vaccine is entering third stage trial. Other companies have already started production, which means they are gambling. So they are going to spend millions and millions and millions of dollars to produce large number with a risk that vaccine may fail and they all have to throw it. So that can happen, but that's what will save time. But in case it works, then they are already there, and another 6 months is not required for large scale production. So those are the shortcuts that people are trying, and regulatory bodies can also allow. Okay, the vaccine doesn't show the great promise of efficacy, but it is showing safe. You want, you can inject, and people want, they can take, and those sorts of things. So some of those criteria will be lowered, and that's why something which should have been otherwise failed may go on. But that exactly means that you are not going to have the best product with these kind of. You can have it earlier, but that will not be the product, because there is no shortcut for a robust, safe vaccine with good efficacy. There is no shortcut. It requires the long-term monitoring and trial. Then only you can say.
Yeah. Dr. Mishra, sooner or later, I believe there'll be a point where we have the vaccine and we'll somewhat go back to normalcy. I'm sure it'll leave a mark on everybody's lives in everyday activities, some sort of consequences. So, but how concerned are you about the resilience of the scientific community?
If you ask me, this has been a really good overhaul for our way of thinking, looking at the system. And by the way, just to comment, we will get to normalcy without vaccine also. It's just
Okay.
that how we manage. It's not herd immunity will slowly kick in if we are already able to manage it much better than somebody to get infected and cured now. It has a far better chance than what 3 months ago, because we have understood there are some steroids that work, and there are some other drugs that are coming. They may be helping little bit. That little help tilts the balance in favor. So this will happen. There are more and more help is coming around. So in few months things will improve. Vaccine will be the greatest thing in all this process, but without that also we'll get to some normal or new normal, whatever you call. Few lessons I would take from here is, one is that we are pushing the environment, and that is why we are exposing ourselves to new dangers. So if that we should take care. These are very broad things. I mean, we can debate and comment on this for 1 hour, but the cause is coming from there. If you go and interfere with the nature beyond what you are your natural rights to do, you will get into new problems. Sometimes it will be even more dangerous. This time we are lucky that it is so less symptomatic, and most people are getting off relatively easy. But it could be worse than this. So that is one. Second thing is, country like India, we realize that even for small components of this diagnostic, there is no drug, vaccine, forget. Even for diagnostic, everything we dependent on import. In a unified world where we start calling one word, there is no border, and a component of a phone comes from 5 different countries assembled in the sixth one, those kind of things. But we should not go so much business and money mind that we forget the basics of that. What if supply chain is blocked? Then we are now in a new kind of dependency. Then what kind of freedom we are talking about? So it is extremely important, and government has woken up really well, that we have to have certain things where we don't depend on others. And it's not it was much better early on. There was efforts making, like we say we have big pharma company, big drug manufacturing, India is a power and all that. The fact is not. If we don't get the APIs, we don't get the starting material from somewhere else, we cannot produce any of these drugs. So that means we have lost capacity of certain things. So that has to be built. For diagnostics of this kind, there should be, in fact, every city should have some kind of independency, self-sufficiency, if not country. I mean, of course, country level, we have to have that. And another important thing is that when a new problem comes, who will solve your new problems? For which virus came, for which there was no name. We forget about any. treatment for that. So you need to understand the virus. You need to understand what it does to people, and then in this process you understand how it goes from one person to other, and then how it behaves in the body so that you can intervene and come up with some cure. All this can come with only if you have good strong basic fundamental research base in the country. Otherwise you can produce material, but you cannot be able, you will not be able to solve new problems, you will not be able to take new challenges. You have to wait for somebody else to make a kit, then you can start training your healthcare worker and start using them. I think that is one lesson which we have learned, that we should have a strong science base, then only we will be able to handle pandemics of this kind. And this is not going to be solved by somebody else, because why we were not able to get even simple components is because it was required in Europe and America, so they will not supply anywhere else. It's a normal thing. We also banned supply of ventilators, the supply of many things, because we need for our people. Drug chloroquine was stopped from export. Then some exemptions were made. Why it was stopped? Because if you supply to others, then what about your people? So it is very normal to expect. There is nothing wrong in that. So I think country like India should be more strongly positioned in terms of expertise, facilities, and science base. Otherwise, we will not be able to manage or even do the basics against such pandemics or disease situation. And this world is so mobile, so flexible, so intermixing. This is going to happen in future. And every 10 year, 8 years, we have been getting new virus, new things. They were less infectious. This one is very smart in infection, weak in the otherwise. So we can expect new kinds of problems, because the way we are pushing the wildlife into a back foot, their diseases will jump out, and some of them may make up to the people. So I think the system, people, and the scientists, they have understood that we have to work differently, and these kinds of things we should be ready. The other problem is, whenever we are doing whatever we are doing, we have must see the need of the weaker section in mind. If we do not do it, we will reach into very big messy situation. So for example, in this pandemic, one of the biggest thing that we have seen the misery, and some of us cannot forget that how people have moved from big cities to small places out of fear, out of threat, and this has been a very, very big damage to the civil society, because these are the people who have been helping in the cities, running the industry. Now all of a sudden they are left to nothing. Even it's not that they should be given food. They should have their proper rights, and there should be technology. There should be resource, because they are the one because of which the cities are running, industries running. So, although we are shifting little bit into social aspect, but the science has to keep in mind that you should have a technology which is applicable at mass level, not for the top 10% of the society. If we always keep thinking private hospitals, Apollos and all, there's nothing wrong with Apollo. You need those things, and Apollo is not one. There are maybe 20 such chains of hospitals. But they are only for 10-15% of the people. They are not for the rest. So it is extremely important that the public hospitals, public health care system has to be strengthened, and as we see governments taking various steps, because no matter how good we are for the top 10%, if the remaining or weaker section is not taken, so science and technology has to keep that requirement in mind. If you do a test of this kind in 3,000 rupees, we are doomed. We will not go very far. How will we get money? Can we do this test in 300 rupees? The sad thing is that we can it. There is no problem in doing the same test in 300 rupees. Then why we are not doing? That's the question that scientists and systems should ask, right? So, and it's possible. So these are the things that have woken us up. People are talking about producing quality, manufacturing, then supplying and using internally quality product. If we can send a rocket to moon, around Mars and everywhere, we can do everything else. It's just that thinking in that way putting our priorities, and the scientists have to work keeping this mind that what is effective for the society. It has been awakening thing for all of us, and in a way, may sound awkward, but I think this pandemic has done many things good. It has done a surgery and removed the sluggish and comfort zone from our mind so that we can think what is the best use of our abilities and how to position ourselves for better uh, healthcare or better condition for the large number of people and not just few people.
Hmm. So we were talking about how the mindset of scientists are to be changed with respect to what we've learned from the current pandemic situation. Currently, many researchers are worried about the disruption and the progress of their work, and find it really hard to continue with their research activities because of many reasons. For instance, they don't have, they have lack of resources. So, what are your suggestions for them on how to make use of this time back home?
See, I think the science, it is a general perception that you need resource to do science, which is true also.
Yeah.
But there is no reciprocal relationship between resource and science. As we say that necessity is the mother of invention. You can do things in a different ways. You can do many experiments using cheaper reagents. I mean, the qualities, publications, sometimes our ideas or results come not by the best of the investments. And in fact, if you do very large calculation, it may appear the other way around because uh, science has more recently, particularly in biology, has become more and more data oriented. And there are people who have spent their lifetime generating data without analyzing and using that data. So it is nice to be on little bit of a tight path, and we should realize that money is important for many other things, and we should learn how to do quality science with lesser resources. There are some research that will require money. So that is where the system has to take care. For instance, if we are to understand, let's say, precision medicine, that we want to treat our people based on what they need and not based on the trial done on a some other population or something. Maybe a particular drug X you require 1 gram, I require half a gram. Because you have a better metabolism rate of that drug, I have slower metabolism rate. So this has to be checked and given according to our physiological and our, in fact, our in and genomic makeup. So for that, we have to generate a lot of data for our population, so that the whole idea is called personalized and precision medicine. So it will require a huge amount of investment. So I give you one simple example. Today, chemotherapy is done without taking help of precision or personalized medicine approach. So any patient will be given the same drug, and half the time these drugs don't work. They work in half the people, don't work in half the people. So which means several lakhs of investment, and more important, the person goes through the ill effects of the drug for no gain. So, but if only we had the information and the relationship of which genome owner will respond and which will not respond, so you can now save 50% of the money in the chemotherapy. And if you go and do calculation, how much, what is the market of chemotherapy drug today, you will see the impressive numbers. So it will require initial investment. That's where the public investment or the government has to invest, and their outcome then will be for all to do. But for large number of scientists don't do heavy data related research. Like very few universities do data generation. They do more experimental of experiments of smaller kind. So I think by and large, we are not going to suffer. And I think a shortage of funds should make us do things differently. And idea is more important than really the resource. They are required, they are useful. But I personally don't think a major setback for the science because of the temporary shortage of funding. That should function to stimulate some unexplored faculties that we have in various aspects of research activity.
Hmm. Yeah. So, Dr. Mishra, misinformation. Today it is quite common to come across some sort of misinformation these days, maybe through some false articles or like fake WhatsApp messages. So, with a lot of challenges already present during times like this, from surveillance to lockdowns to vaccines, some experts believe that the biggest challenge is the one with misinformation. Do you agree with this? And if so, how important do you think it is for a scientist to allay the fears of the public?
No, it is, in fact, the people will look at the scientific community for this. They are not going to get information from a politician or administrator or newspapers or news persons. It has to come from scientists. So scientists or academic institutions have the fundamental responsibility. That's why I keep saying that it's our job to study, learn, discuss, and inform people, inform politicians, inform policymakers, inform press, inform media, and inform general public what we know, what we do not know. You may have come across that if somebody died of COVID, that person, that dead body cannot be taken to the village, they cannot be cremated, they cannot be. These are in a educated society, it is simply ridiculous to go through this kind of process. I mean, somebody has gone through such a loss, their life has been lost. Don't we know that this virus spreads by sneeze, breathe, and this way? When the dead person is not breathing, where even it may be full of virus, it will not. Virus doesn't crawl, it doesn't have wings, it doesn't have anything. So unless it's pushed it from inside the body, it will not come out. So I think it is the responsibility of the scientific community. Don't go and hug that body. Of course, then you may come in contact with some fluid and that can. But you can go and touch and do whatever, wash your hand with. So you're fine. There is one person is not releasing. You don't need a mask on a dead person. So such a simple thing, if you rationalize, you feel ridiculous in a educated society. How this is happening. So I think these are the things where scientific community should take a stand, come out and convince people what is right and what is wrong. If somebody has got COVID, I consider that guy is a hero because now she or he will have antibodies. So if need comes, they can go for plasma therapy. They are very good to test their blood and figure out how they responded to immune and system, how what kind of immunity got and so on. And more importantly, now they are like a stumbling block for the virus to spread. If a virus comes and hits them, we'll just stop there beyond and go beyond that. So they are our heroes. They suffered, maybe they should not have got infected, but once they got, then they are like that. So I think these are the things where the scientific community has to come. You don't have to go and grow the virus in a BSL-3 lab. There are a lot more things a scientist can do because when you are speaking as a scientist, you are taken as authority. When we win a match, then why we get retired cricketers to come and give us a comment? Because we know they are experts, what they are saying, they will bring out the subtle features of the match and we enjoy that. Similarly, when it is about the virus, then if scientists come and say people will buy that, and that is one way. I mean, we are suffering is one thing, but at least we can take advantage of this and establish a better rapport with the society and become more important component of our society and functioning of the system than just that you give me money, I will do research and then don't ask me what I am doing. Right? So that is not. We should be if we are using public money, we should tell public what we are doing, and when there is need, we should come out and. So as I said, it's not only doing the research in the lab, it is spreading the understanding what is known. More important, what is not known to people. We should tell people that there is no drug, there is no vaccine. The chance of having vaccine for some time is very slim. So we cannot wait for some slim chance and suffer. Drug may not come, it will take time. But there are ways that we can manage this disease by wearing mask, by social distancing, and not discriminating people who got infected, those sort of things. So there are lots of things we can do.
That's true. Dr. Mishra, that leads me to the final question. What do you think is the single most important thing we need to be doing as Indians and as a country today?
Oh, that is such a question. I don't think I'm capable to answer that. Uh, as an Indian, we should be doing our job with honesty. Is not today. Anytime that is the best thing that we can do. And if we are convinced, then we should help others. We should
Mhm.
not go and start talking, telling something without being convinced, without knowing something. So knowingly not spreading disinformation is extremely important, and learning, at least educated people, they can learn, they know what is a good source of information, what is not a good source of information, validate that, go to WHO site, go to FDA sites, go to ICMR sites, there is information available, read, spend some time, and then and not circulate false message and I mean all kinds of things. Even scientific community keeps doing that. So scientists are no different. They're also human beings. So the single important thing we should be doing is being compassionate that others may be in disadvantage. So but from their side, whether it's a migrant worker or whether it's infected person or whether it is a healthcare worker, they all are having tough time of various in different ways. But our primary thing is to do to see that what we can do instead of sitting and criticizing the policies, the politicians, the officers, or everybody, and or Chinese or whoever. We have to focus on what we can do. Honesty, that is one thing. Second thing is we take full responsibility that we will not get infected or infect others. If we do that, then we have already we are in good position to win this battle. But we have to do that in all sincerity. I don't know if there is otherwise a single formula that we should all go do this or do that.
Yeah. So, Dr. Mishra, it's a pleasure talking to you, and thank you for making my viewers understand more about this current pandemic situation and for sharing us your perspective about the situation. And thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for talking to me, and it was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, sir. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Bye.